Hello and welcome to Planet NOLA. I'm your host, Mary Jacobs. I am here with another exciting guest, Marcelle Beaulieu of the very famous Instagram. You may or may not know it. You should know it, Louisiana Bra. I mean, how many followers do you have now?
I know exactly how many followers I have. I have 17.4 thousand followers.
Woo!
Because I looked this morning. It's not something I usually...
No, yeah, you should know. I feel like you should know and you should look.
Yeah.
I know roughly how many followers I have on all my accounts.
Well, I just had a big... it's kind of sad. Whenever there's a tragedy or anything traumatic is when I get an influx of followers.
Yeah, because you're putting out resources and information, and that's getting shared, which is exactly what you're doing. Like, that's how that works.
Yeah.
That's why we need you.
Right. You're right. It's just a little...
It's jarring.
It's very jarring. I'm like, this is terrible. I'm like gaining followers because I'm putting out information on mass shootings and the lack of gun regulation, But
it's, someone's got to be a mortician. That's a dark comparison.
Wow.
That was a dark comparison, and I regret it. But what I mean is...
Are you calling me a mortician?
No.
I mean, kind of in a way, but you're right. Like,
do you know what I mean? There are jobs that our society needs. For example, here's a better example that's not as dark. I could never be like an EMS or like emergency room critical care nurse or doctor. My response when like traumatic things happen is I shut down and then I need care. Like I will like hyperventilate and then I'm hospitalized,
Yep.
So like,
oh yeah,
there are people that are needed for those roles, and you're doing like a much needed thing. It's just like a little sad sometimes.
It's really sad and it's overwhelming because sometimes I want to be taken care of too. But
right.
I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast not long ago where she was talking about people like their trauma responses and how some people like sit back and allow themselves to be taken care of, and some people like spring into action.
Yeah.
And they're like, I got this. So it's almost to like distract yourself from what's going on. Right. So I think I fall into that category.
That makes sense.
And which is helpful for
the work you do.
For the work that I do, but it's also really stressful.
You got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to have boundaries and you got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
So wait, can you explain a little bit of what Louisiana Bra is? I mean, it's an Instagram.
It's an Instagram primarily, and it covers Louisiana state politics. And sometimes I'll cover our national delegation, but really, like I try to only cover national stuff as it relates to Louisiana. It has a definite progressive tilt, but also a very local and native tilt, because
also a comedic tilt.
Yeah, I guess so.
Sometimes.
Huh? Yeah. No, I can... That's how I cope, I think.
Do you feel like it's intentional?
Yes.
To include the comedy?
Yeah, because I think also that was a strategy of mine when I began it, to get people to pay attention. Mm-hmm. So like if you draw them in with, a funny meme or video or some kind of joke, they'll absorb that along with the information that you're trying to like put out there.
Yeah, and they're more likely to share the information, and it's got more eyes on it.
Yeah, because I mean, we're just like so inundated with bad news. The only thing we can do sometimes you need to hold space for it and feel that grief. But sometimes you also just need to laugh at the absurdity of where we are and try to find joy when and where you can. And so that's part of using the, comedy in it. What was it? I have it on my website. It says, it's something about, I'm going to have to look that up because I can't remember what I said, but it's kind of how I feel about it. Like laughter is the antidote of fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's just like this way to combat this deep, dark place, and that's in finding community and like fun and joy and laughter.
Yeah, and as a comedian, which is weird to say, as a comedian, I think that to be able to make a well-crafted and timed joke is to have a full comprehensive understanding of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what people relate to in comedy, is when you say something and they're like, oh my God, yeah, that is this or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that, to me, if you're able to have that lightheartedness in the way that you give information, it means that you do have a full grasp of it, and that it's actually kind of like respecting it even more, that you can like kind of look at it in that lens,
Yeah, I get that. I can definitely feel that. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. I try to balance out my Instagram account because like some weeks I'm like, oh my God, everything has been such a downer, especially the last 2 weeks. Everything has been so heavy. and with these bills that are moving through the Louisiana legislature and all these like calls to action I've been putting out. And so sometimes I've just started doing this. Like I go on morning walks every day with my dog in City Park, and it's gorgeous out there. And I've lived here my entire life. And every time I go out there, I'm like, oh my God, it is so beautiful out here. And so I've been like putting up videos and being like, hey guys, look at this, you know. And once I did a voiceover and, you know, it was an update on the abortion bill that they were trying to pass, and, you know, just trying to balance out the heaviness of the information with whatever I can, whether it's a joke or a pretty video.
I mean, I consider myself to be politically active and like pretty radical in my politics, and I have been for a really long time. So I've been angry for a really long time, like a really, really long time. And as I'm sure you understand, yep. And I've kind of gotten to this point in my activism where, and thank God, where I'm able to let myself love things and be happy and not always be carrying the burden of how awful our nation takes care of its people.
Yeah.
Because it's a heavy weight to bear, because life is still going by and you don't want to just always be bearing it.
Yeah, because that's how you lose too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really do believe that like any kind of revolution begins with an individual. You know, us choosing joy, peace, like that is radical in and of itself.
I so agree.
Yeah.
I'm really big about, you know, beauty culture, diet culture, fat phobia. And I constantly say to people, friends, this exact thing. I'm like, the world doesn't want you to like yourself.
No.
And when you choose to do it, it is truly radical. And I know that people say that, but like, it is an actual radical act to enjoy your life, to like feel deep love, feel like connected to yourself. Like, because the world is not structured for us to have those things. Because if more people had that, they would be really free, and we'd really be dealing with
right. I mean,
we'd be liberated AF.
Well, that's a system of oppression. Like that immediately brings to mind voter suppression. The whole point of voter suppression is to make you think that your vote doesn't count.
And it's done a great job.
A really great job.
A great job.
And that's one of the things I tried to combat on Louisiana, bro. I was like, no, your voice matters. Just like your moment of joy going outside looking up at the sky, like that matters. You going to the poll and casting that one vote, even if there's no chance that guy's going to win or that woman's going to win. Look at that. That matters. You know, it's so annoying.
But you did a good job. I mean, I think sometimes with unlearning stuff, that's how it's done. You know, like you just have to course correct. I do that all the time. Course correct.
Well, you know, and
that's rewiring. You have to rewire.
Rewiring, but also I'm very cognizant when I am talking about policymakers on the account. I almost always exclusively use masculine pronouns because they are almost all exclusively masculine.
In Louisiana,
and I'm not going to let that go. You know, like that is a thing. Like these are men that are making these laws, period.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And so that's I think that's part of
right. I see what you're saying though. You're like, I can't do it all the time. Sometimes I have to remember
that. It's so annoying.
That's so real. I feel like, you know, so a thing we were talking about right before we got on camera, and a thing that I've been thinking about before having you on here is, I kind of was like, oh God, I was like, I don't know crap about Louisiana politicians. I know we've got Cassidy and Kennedy as our senators, but literally earlier I was like, is it Cassidy and Kennedy? And I had a moment where I was like, is it? And then I was like, it is. And then I still Googled it because I was like, I'm not sure. And it's like legit. Sometimes I get really insecure with like the full scope of my knowledge about the political atmosphere, you know?
Yeah, I get that. And to make you feel better, every single time I go to vote, I have to look up again which district and precinct.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I cannot remember these things. There's so many times I'm like, wait, who is my legislator? Like, that is...
My hack is that I know the lady that works at the voting... like, because there's all the tables, and I know the lady at my table. So I'm like, oh, there she is. And so I know that's the table I go to. I have no idea what precinct or anything. I'm just like, there she is.
Yeah, my neighbor works it, but she always works for some reason a different precinct. So I always, without fail,
think it's her.
Go to her table. She's like, no, baby.
Yeah.
You're over there. I'm like, oh, I knew that. I was just coming to say hi. That's it.
But yeah.
No, but before I started doing this work, so I started working for a state rep who is the Speaker Pro Tem of the House of Representatives, which just means second in line, at the end of 2015. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I knew nothing about state politics. Nothing. Like, I come from a background in immigration policy, which is all mainly at the federal level. So I knew like federal workings, but when it came to Louisiana politics, local politics, I had no idea. And so it really was like a crash course. I jumped into the deep end of the pool. I was a policy analyst for the Speaker Pro Tem, and that's how I learned. And you know, I have a PhD in Latin American Studies with a focus on poli-sci. And if I was that clueless, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've studied political science and I still didn't know. And so one of the things that I really wanted to do with Louisiana Bra was like just to bring that accessibility to everybody. Like, I had no idea. There is still so much that I don't know, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and some of it's like kind of intentionally layered
Obscure.
and shaded and obscured. Yeah,
they don't want to give you access.
Right. And it is, some of it is going to be harder to understand, and it's just obscured because it is a harder concept to understand, like how things move through or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everyone should have access to that information. And everyone should be able to grasp it. And it's not offered freely, but you're doing it. Yeah. You're trying to. You're like trying to make it so people who don't otherwise feel like they're politically active have you as a touch point.
Yeah, and you know, the one really surprising thing about Louisiana is that the website for the Louisiana legislature is like shockingly well done.
Really?
And easy to navigate.
Interesting.
So if there are any nerds out there who like want a deep dive into a bill or this or that, like you can figure it out. It's it's like really up to date and easy to watch, easy to research, everything.
That's what's up.
It's weird.
Yeah, I feel like as it should be. Like, come on, guys. People should be able to have access to this information quickly. And I think that was where I went when I was Googling to make sure that I knew who our senators
There you go.
were.
Yeah, govote.com.
Yeah. I was like, let me make sure
that's the Secretary of State's website. But yeah.
So we have an election coming up this year.
Yes.
Is it this year?
Yes, in November.
Yeah, and is it for senators?
So, yes, you see, these are the kinds of things that, like, I should know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, our senators and some of our congressmen. So, you know, state level, we have 2 senators. I think you see, I should know this off the top of my head. I think we have 7.
7 congressmen? That was the thing I started to Google.
We just went through the maps. I just
like
obsessively
Marcelle,
went through the congressional maps.
That was the second thing I was about to Google, but I have severe ADHD and I immediately got distracted by something. But that was going to be the second thing to Google was how many people we had.
I think we have 7 congressmen.
And then our representatives, we have like 100 and something.
Yes, like 105.
And they come from like districts.
Yes, they come from districts all over the state. And then, okay.
And they're in Baton Rouge.
And
senators are in Washington.
So we have senators at the state level and the federal level.
Right.
We have 2 senators
at the federal level.
Yes, that are,
and those are the
jabronis,
and Kennedy and Cassidy.
I love that you use that word. I love to use that word.
They're jabronis.
I don't really know what it means.
Me neither, but
where it comes from. It
comes from, I think, Philly.
Is that what
Boston?
It is? Whenever I say it, I'm like, is that something wildly offensive that I just don't understand where it came from?
I just thought it meant like a duncy white guy.
I mean, I have no idea.
Well, if anyone's listening and is trying to cancel me for using jabroni, I'm pretty sure it means like a douchey white guy.
I mean, that's how I consistently use it.
Regularly, we're using words that are just straight up slurs and don't know it, so it could very well be something
Right.
Time will tell when we get canceled from this podcast.
Yeah, we love y'all. So yeah, you have your state senators and your congressmen, which are your representatives at the state level that are in DC.
Oh, DC.
DC. And then everybody in the state has the same 2 senators, and we all have a different representative, a congressman. So congressman or congresswoman, we do actually have a congresswoman, is for the state level, federal level,
right,
national level. Then we have,
I think we have 7 of those, right?
7.
Yes.
I'm like second guessing myself now.
That sounds right to me.
That sounds right to you.
Yeah, it sounds right to you.
And
sounds right to you.
To me. Yeah.
Must be true.
Must be true if it sounds right. And so then at the state level, everybody has 1 state senator and 1 state representative, and they're in Baton Rouge, and we have 105, I think, state reps total, and about like 32 state senators. Again, numbers that I should know off the top of my head, but those are the rough numbers.
You basically do. You know enough. Like, it is what it is. You know, now I want to know their birthdays and
don't make me do that.
What districts they represent. No,
what's kidding. Their sign?
Yeah, what's their full astrological chart?
Mercury is always in retrograde.
In Louisiana, it feels like it is lately.
So sad.
Oh my God.
Really
so I felt like I definitely felt a little insecure. I was like, oh God, I don't know enough. But that is the beauty of what what you're doing, and that is why it's so important.
Well, and I get a lot of questions, and that's like I don't ever want anybody to feel shame about not knowing that, because again, they set it up that way.
Yeah.
Right? And so for them to make you feel shame about it is them winning. That's what they wanted in the first place. Mm-hmm. If it were meant to be a fully transparent process, it would be.
Right.
It would be easy to navigate.
It's just not.
But it's just not. And that is by design. So there is that's not on you that you don't know. That's on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I'm having a separate thought. I've been listening to a lot of Adrienne Marie Brown. Are you familiar? Yeah, she's incredible. And I've listened to her on multiple podcasts now.
Does she have her own podcast?
She does. There's an emergent strategy podcast, but she's not always the host of it.
Okay.
This is too much of a digression, so I'm going to stop talking about it. It is. The thing I want to tell you has nothing to do with what they're talking about, but it just reminded me of it, and it's fine. I'm going to go back on track.
I love her Instagram account.
Yeah, she's got it's mostly memes.
It's so good. I know. It's such
She talks about why she does that, too.
What did she say?
Well, it's the same thing that you said.
Yeah.
It's that everything is so heavy. And it doesn't need to always be so heavy. And so she tries to disseminate just joyful, silly memes
and she does such a great job.
She's got great memes. Yeah,
oh my God.
Very
I
funny.
share them constantly.
Yeah. She's super, super funny.
Yeah, she's real good.
Anyway, we can get back on track.
What was the track?
Oh, we have an election coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And can we please get rid of Kennedy and Cass? What's going to happen? I want them gone. Doesn't everyone want them gone? Are they both up for re-election?
I think, oh my gosh, you see you're asking me questions.
That's fine.
Kennedy
at least one of them is.
Kennedy definitely is. Cassidy is. Wait. No, Cassidy's not, right? Yeah.
Our producer has
just
chimed
Kennedy,
in.
Yeah.
Kennedy was the one I knew.
I'm embarrassed that I don't know. You see?
Yeah. It's just I'm sorry. I'm not. You don't have to be embarrassed. This is a shame-free space. You just said
shame-free space.
You just said
yeah,
it.
And then I think most of our congressmen are up for re-election as well.
What's the best case scenario? Is there a best case scenario?
Kennedy has so much money. I mean, he has millions and millions of dollars.
From the NRA.
From, the NRA, from RNC, from all of them. I mean, in my best case scenario, and so Luke Mixum's running against him, who has recently been endorsed by the governor. And he's like the establishment guy, Democrat, right? Which I'm not saying that
an establishment Democrat feels way more possible than, a radical.
So the other guy running against him is Gary Chambers Jr., which would be the radical.
Oh, yeah. Gary Chambers Jr. is who I'm obsessed with. He did the campaign where he was smoking that big fat blunt. Yes. Talking about nonviolent drug offenses and stuff. He's real, shock and awe. The work he's doing, though, whether or not he's going to make it, I mean, in my dream world, I'm like, I want someone who smokes weed to represent me. I think that's great. But among all his other stuff, he's very, very liberal, and he's my kind of politician. What I like about his campaign is that he's getting so many eyes on it.
I know.
He's getting eyes on it.
I know, and that's important.
Step one.
Well, and I've talked about this all the time. Louisiana is so discounted across the board all the time when it comes to any kind of leftist movement. I had a call, the New York Times called me, wanting to talk about, Democratic politics in Louisiana, John Bell, and how he's managed to be a Democratic governor in such a red state. Well, but
yes,
exactly.
He is.
So they said, we were just wondering, how has he flown under the radar? I said, he hasn't flown under the radar. Y'all just don't count him as a Democrat because he's pro-life.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we don't get any we don't get money from the DNC, because our Democratic governor is pro-life. They just pretend progressives in Louisiana don't exist. And the thing is we have a wide spectrum of that's what the Democratic Party is. Let's be real. The Republican Party is largely homogenous. They all look the same. I mean, I don't want to be like that.
But I have family members in my Southern Louisiana family that vote Democratic because they're not single issue voters, but they are pro-life, anti-choice. Right. Yeah.
Well, and that's a real thing.
It's a real thing here.
It's a real thing, and it's something that you have to allow for.
Yeah.
And not only the New York Times and people in the North, but I'm speaking to you, my dear transplants. Mm-hmm. That is something that if you move to Louisiana, and you come from a liberal place, you have to understand that it is so nuanced here. I mean,
oh my God, my partner and I talk about this all the time because Kristen's from the West Bank.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And this is a joke, but it's the cultural differences between the West Bank and the East Bank having us grown up at the same exact time but in different places, we talk about the nuances of that sometimes, all the time. And a lot of times transplants think we are being like, I don't know what they think. They get really uncomfortable when we talk about the differences. And I'm like, it's not like bad differences. There's just like small cultural differences that are worth acknowledging. Like, it's worth acknowledging this huge swath of politics in Louisiana. Yeah, do you feel like people try to say this isn't legitimately democratic? Or what do you think it is with the transplants trying to name it? Because I struggle with this sometimes where people want to tell me like I'm incorrect or I'm handling something wrong. And I'm like, I'm from here. Like, this is an issue that pertains to me. Been here my whole life.
And I can talk about it however I want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I have a lot of nuance to it that you probably don't have. Like,
I think that they just don't understand. I mean, I often like wish, and this is like kind of a half-baked thought that I've been like kind of playing around. I love a half-baked thought. Like playing around with in my head, because I've been thinking a lot about transplants, and I've got a lot of friends who are transplants. You know, I've spent a lot of time. I mean, New Orleans is always my home base, but I spent a lot of time outside of New Orleans, and you know, I think that one of the things is that they just don't realize the full extent of conservatism in Louisiana. And if they hear, like, if somehow it comes up, there's like, say there's someone I know, someone I grew up with, or someone in my family that uses the N-word still. Mm-hmm. They just can't believe that.
They can't believe that, yeah.
They can't believe that exists, you know, or they
Kristen talks about this all the time because she is from the West Bank. You know what I mean? And that is a thing. White people throwing that word around out there is a thing. Yeah. I'm not saying it's okay, but it's a thing.
And I just like oftentimes wish that they would kind of treat their transplantness as an allyship. Mm. Because a lot of them do have good intentions about, you know, how they want to be a contributor to New Orleans or Louisiana. But they come with such preconceived ideas of how things should be. And
that's the way to say it.
And sometimes I just wish, because like number one rule of being an ally is not to call yourself an ally. And number two is just to listen. And a lot of times, like, you know, and I'm not trying to appropriate, you know, anti-racist work here by any means, but it just
kind of is anti-racist work because New Orleans half black.
Very true.
It applies. It applies.
And I just wish that sometimes they would just listen and I think about all the times, like with my black neighbors, when I have said something like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that," and they're like, "Of course you don't. Like, white girl doesn't believe that this could happen." Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like I can just see the parallelisms there. You know how I've exacerbated people by my naivete.
That sounds right.
They
know what you mean.
Never know how to say that word.
I'm a big malapropism person.
Naivete.
Like, if they know what you mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
That sounds right.
I usually see words in my head when I say them, and I don't really know how to spell that word, so that's why it always trips me up. And so I just see a lot of parallelisms there, and I just wish that, you know, there's so much aggressive, self-proclaimed allyship among transplants, and sometimes I just wish they would just like chill for a second, and just like listen, just listen,
and know that not everything is gonna fit into the way that your worldview.
Right, and I mean, you know, this has always been my home base, but like when it's something I need to learn too when I go to different spaces. Like we're always, unless you're like in your house, you're a guest somewhere, right? Yeah. And so there's always something to like listen to. I think that everybody can apply this in some aspect of their life. Of course. You know? And it's just super important, and it's something I need to do, something you need to do.
I wish that people approached conversations with curiosity. Yeah. In an authentic way. You know, I'm an extrovert, and I will talk to anybody, anywhere. Well, we met at a party. Yeah. We met sitting outside of a party, and I think I chatted you up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because I think I'm an introvert. But
I'm going to talk to anybody.
Well, and I can be extroverted at times, like, you know, evidenced by the work that I do. But generally,
I could tell you were an introvert at that party. When I first started talking to you, I was like, this person don't want to talk to me, but I'm going to make her talk to me.
And I remember you.
Because you were like waiting for an Uber and like annoyed. And I was like, I don't know, you're going to talk to me.
I was waiting for an Uber for like 4 hours.
Oh, it was like right when the world reopened and there were no Ubers.
There were no Ubers, but then then also I exacerbated the situation because they kept playing like good, like old school New Orleans hip hop. And so I would keep running back inside every time I heard a song to like dance by myself on the dance floor because I was so happy to be out in the world again. And then if they did come, I definitely missed it. So every time I came back outside, you were sitting out there. And I think we figured out we were both from here. And you said, oh, I figured. I always gravitate towards the natives.
Yeah. When I get my teeth in somebody and I want to talk to them, they can't escape me. And then, like, we're going to have a conversation. But what I notice in my conversationalist, professional life is people don't know how to listen, but I think a lot of it is like a lack of curiosity. Like when I meet somebody, I really want to know where they're from, which people get triggered by. I want to know where they're from because to me that colors a lot. Like I know that a little bit more about their worldview. If somebody tells me they're from New York City, I'm like, oh, you grew up around a lot of liberals. You grew up around great public transportation. You grew up around. I immediately like can put that in my brain and I can understand them a little bit better. People get very defensive about it. Usually it's when they're from boring places.
Yeah,
you know?
I just don't get that though. Like
I don't get it either.
I'll always be from New Orleans. Even if I live somewhere for 20 years, if anyone asks me where I'm from, I'll always say New Orleans.
That's what I always say.
I don't get that. Yeah, and I don't know if it's
I don't get it either, but
I
think it's
clout.
like people I think what it is I think it's people are insecure unnecessarily. Like I notice this a lot. I think
it's cool to be from like
it's great to be from wherever you're from. It's just where you're from. It's not who you are. It's not who you are. Like New Orleans is not who I am. Like it's definitely shaped me. But I always ask people where they're from. That's like one of the first questions. And then I love to know what people do for work because I'm like, oh, what do you do? Because I'm like, I genuinely want to understand. If someone tells me they're a nurse, I'm going to assume like 50 things about them. And I know that maybe they're not all true, but it helps me to just understand them a little better. And then I can be like, oh, what hospital? Because I know this person at this hospital. I know that person at that hospital. Stuff like that. Like I'm always curious about who you are and like how you fit into this. That's why I love this podcast too.
Yeah.
And like having curious conversations and really listening. And the thing you're talking about with folks coming into conversations with preconceived notions, it is people don't know how to have conversations anymore. We have to take a break. This episode of Planet NOLA is brought to you by Vitality Community Fitness. Vitality is a functional training gym located in Metairie, Louisiana. And at Vitality, we focus on members as individuals. That's right. We don't lump people together. We don't assume that everybody has the same goals when they step into our gym. We also don't push things like body ideals or diet culture. We try to focus on the full person, and we try to give an experience that matches that. We've got incredible coaches. We've got an incredible community. And if you're looking for a place to call your new gym home, consider checking us out. We offer a 3 free class trial. That's right. Literally no commitment. You can try 3 of our classes in a week to see if our gym is for you because ultimately we want people who want to be there. And if it sounds like this might be the space for you, please consider checking us out. You can go to vitalitycommunityfitness.com, click the contact button and get started. And we're back to Planet NOLA. I am still here with Marcelle from Louisiana Brah. And if you haven't followed Louisiana Brah yet, you should. Something after we met, then you started following my business.
Yes.
Mary's Rack. And maybe I can't remember what you followed, but you follow me, I follow you. Yeah. We're on the internet. And,
we're on the internet.
And last time, and I one time made a post about being vulnerable. I don't remember exactly what the post was, but I basically made a post that was like, I'm just going to be myself authentically on here because that's all I know how to be. And if people have issue with that, like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. And you were like, that resonated with me and you changed some things.
Yes.
So what did you change?
So prior to that, prior to your watershed moment in my life,
I will take it. I will take it.
As you should. There are like certain people that have really, like, you know, I'm like kind of a creeper on the internet. You know, like I'll watch you from afar and like take note of what you're doing and allow it to affect me in a good way. Usually, sometimes in a bad way.
Yeah.
But so prior, I had always run Louisiana Brah pseudo-anonymously, right? Like, if you went digging deep enough, you could figure out who was behind it.
Yeah, you told me within the first 5 minutes of knowing you that you ran it.
Well, I don't do that with everybody.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, you sort of anonymously. You told me, but maybe you wouldn't tell somebody else.
Like, the masses that follow me didn't know. But
like, your friends knew.
My friends knew. You know, legislators that I interact with, is particularly Democrats, pretty much knew who I was. The Republicans, not so much. I tried to hide from them just because when I'm at the Capitol and I'm like doing my thing, I like to just sit in the corner and not be noticed, you know? But so after that, you know, I love the memes and I love all that stuff, but I am a writer inherently, and I'm a nerd. So I always want to do deep dives, right? Like I always want to talk more about things, and the way I talk about things just always inherently comes from a personal perspective. And I was stopped from doing that because it was like anonymous. And so I'd made the decision to not be anonymous anymore. I still don't really put myself in the forefront of the Instagram page just because I haven't, and maybe that'll change, maybe it won't. I know that's what they push you to do for the algorithm, but like
it seems like you're doing just fine.
I don't really give a shit about
either
that.
way.
Yeah,
you can do it or you don't have to.
And so I started a Substack account and like a newsletter, and I call it a newsletter, but it's not. I mean, there's information in it, but it's not like a rundown. These are all the things that happened this week, right? It's more of just whatever I am feeling creatively, I'm going to write about.
Right.
I've written about David Sedaris. I've written about Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I went to see David Sedaris when he was here last.
So did I. I saw you that night.
Oh, did we?
I saw you that night.
Did we see each other that night?
So,
but you write about things that you're interested in.
I write about, and it all has like somewhat of a political slant, right? But I mean, it's just kind of coming out with my name and my identity. One is a little bit scary because there are a lot of crazies out there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to use that word pejoratively, but
No, I know what you mean.
Especially like now that I've started talking more and more about gun control, the gun enthusiasts have found my page, and I've had to block a bunch of them because I usually try not to censor anybody, but like it's just
those guys are scary.
They're scary and they're threatening, and it's just not cool. And so it was scary but also liberating because now I can like speak from my point of view and my perspective with my name and my stories, because I love to write personal narrative, and that's how anybody relates to the world, really. And so to be able to like draw from my own stories has been really good. And it's only been like a month and a half, and so I'm there have been probably some hits and some misses, and I'm just trying to figure out and just kind of practice writing and using my voice every week, which has been really nice.
That's awesome.
So I'm hoping that'll just keep growing and growing, and I can still, because also I wanted to kind of get out of the quagmire of like the day-to-day slog of this bill's coming up and we need to kill this bill, and I kind of wanted to go up 30,000 feet to really talk about like how we're talking about like big ideas,
interconnectedness of all of those big ideas.
Yeah. So
you've done a good job building your audience, so and like educating your audience, so it feels like you've almost earned this place now of like, I can just do the thing. Yeah. I mean, you could have always, you didn't have to earn it, but sometimes we feel like we need to earn it. Sometimes we feel like, we have to prove ourselves first, basically, but you don't. But you've built up a nice little audience. Yeah,
it worked out really well. I was terrified when I started it. Absolutely terrified. Did not sleep the night before. Yeah. Was so scared.
That's how I felt about starting this podcast.
Oh my God. Vulnerability is so scary.
All I will do is talk about Adrienne Marie Brown, but it's because literally she is my prophet. She talks about emergent strategy, which is her belief of growing and leading and all of those things, right? And a big part of emergent strategy is getting it wrong and like coming back from getting it wrong, and accountability, and like leading with empathy and vulnerability. And ultimately, like before we started the podcast, I was just like kind of reeling because yes, I had a business, and then I had just started a business that my face is on, which was its own form of stress.
That's so scary.
But at least it was a business and not like me as a person. And I'm a comedian, but I'm doing bits when I'm on stage, so I'm also just performing. This is another level of vulnerability. Yeah, it's me having honest conversations with people. People are perceiving me on this like way deeper way than they ever have on Instagram. And I'm not saying they're overthinking it. I'm just saying to be perceived in that way is terrifying. Even for me, who's an extroverted extrovert, it's terrifying. And what I ultimately, before I really got committed to the idea of it, I was like, Mary, you're gonna fuck it up. You're gonna get stuff wrong. Like, I know I am. For the rest of my life, there will be things that I fuck up and get wrong. And then I'm like giving myself the empathy that I would give anyone else. Yep. And it's like, it's okay. You will get things wrong. And as long as you have like your mission and your head on about why you're doing something, you can grow from your mistakes. Yep. And that's how I approach everything. And it gives you so much more freedom to live authentically.
I think that was what resonated with me whenever you posted that you were just like, I'm just going to let my creativity go and run loose and just put it out there and stop being scared of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it, is trusting your instincts. because obviously you're successful at things that you do. It's hard, and that's been a big journey of mine the last few years, is especially all the unlearning. You know, I'm from here, went to Catholic, like went through 17 years of the Catholic school system.
Yeah, you went to St. Louis, King of France, and then Mount Carmel.
And then Mount Carmel.
Yeah, I used to teach briefly taught at Mount Carmel.
So did I.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Were we there at the same time?
I did 2 years non-consecutively, I think in like 2007-ish.
Oh no, I was in high school then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I graduated high school in 2000.
Oh, you're my sister's age. My sister graduated in 2000. She teaches at Mount Carmel now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I taught Spanish there. I did 2007 and like 2010 or 2011. An amazing thing happened to me this past week. Like, I got a DM, and I don't even see most of my DMs because there's just too many of them, and I'm just one person.
As a student?
It was a student, and she was like, "Hey, did you by any chance used to teach Spanish at Mount Carmel?" I was like, "Yes." Oh my God. I am so glad you found this page. I am so glad you were engaging. I am so
That's
since
awesome.
she had all these comments on the gun bills. And I was like, it is not an easy jump to go from a Catholic school education to following and engaging with a page like mine.
Yeah.
And that just warmed my little heart so much.
That's awesome.
So I was really excited about that. Like, there's hope out there.
I am very excited about Gen Z. I am so excited about Gen Z, and it's funny because I see friends that agree with me, and then I see friends that are like, "Why?" And I'm like, the friends that are like, "I don't get it." I'm like, "You sound like our parents. Like you're doing the thing that our parents did, where they patronized our generation, and we're continuously patronized by boomers and everyone above." And it's like,
what generation are you?
Are you an elder millennial?
I'm an elder millennial.
Yeah. I'm a millennial.
Okay. We have been villainized.
Yeah.
Completely villainized for trying to survive in this shit economy and shit world.
We're the first generation that's like actually trying to do right by ourselves and each other. You know, we're the first generation that like really thinks women are equal for the most part. You know, like shocker, like that caused trauma in the past. Like women were getting married at 18 and probably wouldn't have if the patriarchy wasn't as heavy as it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like even into the 90s, you know, even into the early aughts. I mean, anyway, we're the first generation that's trying to break all those cycles, and it's so silly that we get villainized. But Gen Z is on our shoulders, and I remind them of that occasionally.
You know what? You are so right.
I remind them.
They make fun of us too.
Well, I remind them. There has been a moment where someone was like making fun of millennials, and I was like, like we laid some groundwork for you.
Some major groundwork.
We laid some serious groundwork.
We stopped putting up with the bullshit.
Yeah, just like we stand on the shoulders of like the queer people that came before us, and like for me, it's like. There's all these people that I stand on the shoulders of, and it's like, it is what it is. It's like, if we can all honor and respect where people are at, where they've come from, how we've gotten here, then we can just have that curiosity. We'll have a better understanding of each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And empathy. Empathy is the key to everything.
So much empathy. Yeah. Vulnerability, too. Brene Brown, she'll tell you vulnerability. Up, down, left, right. I know.
She's so good.
I think I consumed too much of her, and now I'm kind of pulled back. Go to Adrienne Marie Brown. I got a different Brown, and let me tell you. The two combined, it's like my entire life. You know,
I've learned a lot through them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hell yeah, this has been so nice. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground too.
Yeah, like a whole lot of things. But I mean, I feel like that's the kind of work we're in. Like, it's all interconnected.
Okay, so this is a question that I ask folks that kind of have like big picture kind of vibes. You've heard this question, and you've got the big picture kind of vibe. And if you were given a huge lump sum of money tomorrow and you could do anything in this state or city or New Orleans that you feel you could do anything with the money, what would you do with it?
Early childhood education.
So what does that mean?
It would just be an investment in like 0 to 3. Mm-hmm. You know, we just don't have any money set. I mean, we have some money set aside. 0 to 5, really. Like that is where such like developmental stages are so important. And I think that like especially single parent households, if they had more access to, care and to good resources and all those things that they needed, I mean, I think it would make such an impact. So that's always what I've had in the back of my head.
I mean, childcare is such, if that burden can be lifted from people who are working to like make ends meet, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's huge.
And it frees up mental capacity. Like you're pinching less pennies. You get to spend more time with your kids ultimately because of it.
Well, but also like think of the benefit for the children.
Yeah.
Like if they were in like a stable environment during the day, like being cared for by qualified people who are also well compensated and trained.
Yeah.
Like imagine like I feel like the repercussions of that would just be like a ripple effect throughout our entire because think about it now, like all the Katrina kids are coming of age, right? And like that's become like a huge conversation starter about how they just lived through this hugely traumatic experience. They were left behind. All these things happen, and now they're coming of age.
Yeah.
And so, what does that mean for us? Like those negative consequences.
When you say Katrina kids, do you mean young children during Katrina? Like how old are you referring to?
Like the kids who were like young, and so what was that? 17
grade school age.
Yeah. Who like lost like
and had no idea what was going on.
No idea what was going on. Got lost in the school system. I mean, our school system was such a mess. You know, like had to go somewhere and all this stuff, and just like the huge trauma. I think isn't there like some documentary that just came out about it. I feel like I haven't watched it yet, but anyway, if we can acknowledge like what negative impacts like that, like at a developmental age for those kids would be, like think about what we could do that would have a positive impact.
Right.
And so I just think early childhood education is so hugely important. I mean, and then after that, I would love to tackle infrastructure. Yeah. Like the infrastructure here is just, I mean, but then I don't know. Then you just get into climate change and the coastline, and it just feels
that's tied in.
So overwhelming.
You can have as many projects as you want. I'll allow it.
Okay, yeah.
In my utopia.
Gosh, what is closest to my heart? I mean, the things that I have tried. One of my boundaries I've set, like how we talked about earlier, is that I've realized I cannot cover all the bad bills or all the good bills, right? And so I like really only cover the ones that speak to me. And consistently it's been domestic violence bills, gun control bills, and police brutality bills. Yeah. And so I'd probably want to do something in those arenas.
That's what's up.
Yeah, because I used to work with the Black Caucus as well, and they've done like amazing work with, especially in the aftermath of George Floyd and everything. And, there have been a lot of roadblocks for them in terms of passing legislation that was on their agenda to pass to address these issues. But I just think it's so important.
You'll throw a few mil their way.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I would love to.
All right. I want, before we go, for you to say why people should follow you and like who's your client, who's your person, and why should they follow you?
Who's my person?
Do your elevator pitch.
Oh wow! I've never.
It's not an actual elevator pitch. I don't actually care about that. You don't have to actually do an elevator, but I mean, just like pitch yourself a little bit so that people know that they should go follow you. I think that you've proven yourself in this episode worthy of a follow. I don't even know why I'm asking you to do this.
No, I mean the people I speak to, it really could be anyone. I mean, I know that I have a progressive tint, but I also have some Republican friends that I grew up with that follow me and that engage with me, and so I can sometimes be brutal in my assessment of what's going on, right?
Fairly.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
But also it is a space where we talk about things and I explain a lot of things. And I generally try not to tell people how to, like, what to think. I just tell them, like,
here's the information.
Like, I don't endorse people. I don't endorse anything like that. Anyway, so I really believe that Louisiana Bra is for everyone, except if you're just like, some person who's going to like come and spew semantic arguments about what is an AR-15 and it's not.
Good God.
Like, I am so sick of like those kinds of, like, you are not.
Those people are not listening to
You're
this
not
podcast.
my project.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this with a friend of mine. I just talked about it on the radio this week with the Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance. I know who is not my project.
Right.
And like, I'm not worried about you.
Yeah.
On either side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want the people who are genuinely curious and want to know more.
Hell yeah.
And if you want to debate, that's great. But I'm not going to debate these bullshit bros that pop up on my page who like want to talk about where exactly did it say in this bill that you cannot say gay. Like, oh my God, shut up. Like, I am not going to engage with you. I see you're watching. Your silence is, speaks volume.
Oh
like,
my God.
So I won't engage with people like that. But anybody that wants to know more, like, I welcome.
Engage.
Yeah, I welcome you, because we also talk about a lot of hard things. Like, how do you talk to, like, I don't advocate cutting out people who don't agree with you, and I got a lot of slack for that. But especially people like on the left, especially transplants who don't understand what it's like to have really conservative friends and family.
Yeah.
Like, and look, if somebody's harmful to you, do what you got to do.
Yes, of course.
I never do not put yourself in harm's way and protect yourself. But, you know, I have a great relationship with most of my family members who are Republican, you know, and so we talk a lot about those like kinds of conversations and those truths and those realities. And so I welcome anybody on my page.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you might not
okay,
like
and then
it,
my last question. It's always the same, so you might know what it is. I like to have people on this podcast that are cool or doing cool things, which I actually didn't say at the top, which I usually say at the top.
You do usually say that at the top.
Yeah, I didn't say at the top. It's been, you know, I'm rusty, so.
Yeah.
But who would you say should be on Planet Nola?
So I've thought a lot about this because I've listened to a few of your episodes now. And like obviously the first people that pop up are like all my neighbors who are just like cool people in general, like Ronnie across the street who like when I had a staycation at my aunt's house in Harahan for 2 days, like called my entire family because I forgot to tell them I was going to be in Harahan, and was like, wait, I called your auntie and if she wouldn't answer, I was going to call your dad next to know where you were.
I was worried about you,
which I love. So like those people, but then I was really thinking about so two good friends of mine own Margie's Grill and Seafood Sally's. Have you ever been there?
I've been there, but I haven't like eaten there. I've been in the places though. Well, it's a long story. One time we went to Seafood Sally's and like we were late. Yes, but I know what they are.
Yeah, they're restaurants. One's on Broad, one's on Oak. So it's Caitlin Carney and Marcus Jacobs, who I met when we all worked together at Herb Saint. So I was in the service industry for 15 plus years at least, and so what they have done at Margie's and Seafood Sally's is really cool. I mean, they get a lot of press for like the product that they put out, rightfully so, but also behind the scenes they've built, especially because they just opened Sally's during the pandemic. They have really put a lot of thought and modeled their business plan and their business model after creating an inclusive and diverse and equitable workplace.
Oh, that's what's up. Yeah,
it's really cool, and you can feel it when you walk in, and you can see it reflected in the staff. You can see it reflected in the clientele, and they are unapologetically doing this.
Yeah,
and they've worked with turning tables like really intimately, and they've worked with I asked Marcus.
I don't know what turning tables is.
Turning tables, I'm not going to be able to give their elevator pitch very well, but they basically like train like native New Orleanians, like especially POC, in service industry, and then kind of I don't know their mission statement very well, so I don't want to misrepresent them. Teray does an amazing job over there, and like helps them, like places them in certain places, and then works with those places to help create an equitable and inclusive workplace.
That's
so like really working closely, and Caitlin and Marcus have like really created a special space, and they've never shied away from like what their mission is over there. And there's a lot, I think, you know, our chefs and our restaurant industry and our tourism industry, like especially like the mom and pop shops like that, hold so much cultural power here.
Yeah. And
like, you know, if you look
at that bar high, baby.
Yeah. And like, you know, I'm sick of like, look, Galatoire's, Commanders, all that, blah, blah, blah. But they're like these huge corporations, right? That they're set in their ways. They're going to fight against, you know, a basic minimum wage or a decent minimum wage, blah, blah. But when you have people like this who have like completely not radicalized, but like revolutionized their entire pay structure to make sure everybody has a living wage, that the back of house is equal with the front of house, that everybody has like an equal say and equal part in it. Like that is huge. And those are people in our community that are making a real impact in like on a very local basis. So they're really cool. They're dear friends of mine, and I really respect what they're doing over there.
Awesome. So you can call in the favor for me?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, that's good to know.
And they'll be very entertaining, I think.
I love it. I mean, I love an entertaining person, but I really do love people that are doing the work, you know?
No, and they are really doing it.
This is a pretty left-leaning podcast, you know? Sometimes I forget that. It's so funny.
Yeah, no, they're doing it, and, they're really walking the walk instead of just, putting up some posts on Instagram.
Yeah, it's not BS.
No, it's not BS.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. This has been so
nice.
nice.
It's been great. I've had so much fun.
Did you have fun?
I did. I had a blast.
Okay,
I
good.
could talk to you for like
I could talk to you for
hours and hours.
Okay, well, this is so enjoyable, and I appreciate you coming so much. Everyone should follow Louisiana Bra. Subscribe to Marcelle's Substack. All that info
It's called
is
Nabra.
Nabra. And thank you so much for listening, y'all. Be in touch. Thank you again to this episode's guest. Planet NOLA is produced by Carrie Mulder and Mary Jacobs. If you liked what you heard here, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube or all your social media platforms and pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. Also, if you really, really liked this episode, think about subscribing to our Patreon, where we have tons of bonus content from this episode and more. It starts at just $5 a month, and it would mean the world to us. Thanks so much, y'all, and be in touch.